Welcome to the desk of a passionate author. My name is Beatrice Achaneke. I'm the author of the Africa for Smart Kids book series. This is a book series that has been my whole life since the 19th of December 2018. And I'm so proud to invite you to share with you the result of what all this has been and why I'm today so happy and so passionate and kind of, yes, I'm just so happy that I started this book series. Come, let me show you. I mentioned in my first video, and if you haven't seen the first video, make sure you go back to watch it. I promise to introduce each one of these books to you and tell you what drives me. You know, I was born in Cameroon, and and in my time, in the 70s, we all went through a colonial system of education. So we knew Europe more than any other continent. And I grew up thinking that I have to go to Europe in order to become who I become, in order to realize my fullest potential. And when I got to Europe, I realized that, you know, it's not what it is. Europe is not home like many of us think. There's so many challenges that you face out there as an African, and if you don't really know your identity, you don't know who you really are, on whose shoulders you stand, and what it means to be an African, you can really be confused sometimes. And the worst thing is when you start trying to shape your life to fit into the picture of what you think people think you should be. You know what I mean? When you're in Europe, you have a new identity. You are an immigrant. You are an African. When you're in German-speaking Europe, they call you Black African. So they really put that specific stamp on you to really make you know that you don't belong. You may have the passport like I do, but it doesn't really save you from that. So I got into a point where I started asking myself, who am I really? Do I have value as an African? Is there any value I can add? What is it that I really know about my legacy? And that brought me to a point in my life where when I had to make a very radical decision. The decision to give up, you know, to let go 20 years of life in Europe, to let go things that were so close to me, like my children, my business partners, friends, and the social environment that I was used to take a leap of faith to come back to the continent that I call home and to find myself. And so this brought me into writing the books. Come, let me show you again. We have to get right down to the books now. So since then, I've been writing, and this is my book one. It starts with a basic question, basic invitation. Let's talk about Africa. You know, I wrote these books for myself because I needed to understand my legacy. I needed to understand me. I needed to understand where I come from in order to share with others. And ever since I've been on this journey, I've learned so much that today I can stand up and say unapologetically that I am a proud African. So this one is a book that starts with a simple invitation. It takes kids across Africa and start with harmless questions. You know, those harmless questions that people ask you about Africa. Where is my table of contents? Let me show you. You know, like, does the sun always shine in Africa? So everyone thinks that we always have summer in Africa. To an extent, it is true, but not in all parts of Africa. You get the answer in there. Does everyone live in a mud house in Africa? You know, Africa is very diverse, and I had to learn about this by myself. We don't only live in mud houses, and even the mud houses, some of them are so sophisticated that you can't really oversee them. What do women do in Africa? Quite a lot of people out there think that women in Africa are lazy, that they're submissive, that they're uneducated. Hey, you have to read this book to really see what some women have been doing and are still doing in Africa. Who are some of the famous people in Africa? Well, this may be a very special question to answer, but there are some criteria in there that will show you some of the famous people. But above all, the book is an invitation for you to go find out about Africa, starting from your country if you're an African, and you know, the country that interests you if you are a non-African. I have to say this, these books are not just only for Africans, but it is also for people who want to know Africa from a different perspective. Which animals live in Africa? You know, everyone thinks that in Africa we live on trees and with animals. No. Read this book and you'll find out more. What do I tell my friends about Africa. And look at this. Once you have read this book, you'll definitely have a different story to tell about Africa to your friends, to your students if you're a teacher, to your community if you're a preacher or whoever. You'll definitely have a different story to tell. So I invite you to go through the book. You see it has maps, and through the pages I have my characters. There are three young people, young people, youth from Europe. There's Ngwise, there's Atabong, there's Prince Foreke, and there's Mosquito Zangalo. So those are my characters. They have a very lively conversation in the book, and alongside, while you read and have the conversation, you have pictures that show you different aspects of Africa, tell you about food, show you some very beautiful mud houses that we have in Africa, masterful architecture. We take you to Timbuktu. You know, this is the University of Timbuktu. We show you places, show you capital cities of Africa, give you statistics. You know, it's a very, very important book. Show you some women that are playing in the forefront of political leadership. You know, we Africans, we have female presidents. I'll tell you about that in the next book. So it's a book that you want to read as a family. It's a perfect book to read in an evening, you know, when you meet together. It's a book that you want to give people out on Christmas or on special occasions, people who are interested in discovering Africa. So I invite you to make it a point to know and understand Africa. Look at it from my eyes and from the eyes of my storyteller. This is your book 1. And if you want to know more about book 2, I will be right back in the next video to tell you more about what you will discover in book 2. So again, welcome to the decks of a very passionate author. My name is Beatrice Achaleke. I'm the author of the Africa for Smart Kids book series, and I can't wait to serve you. Stay tuned, subscribe, and get the next video. Thank you.